Hello, this is Lydia at Homespun Quilts and Yarn in Astoria, Oregon. I'm still working, of course, on this quilt I designed. The next thing I need to do is make another one of these blocks. And these are made out of half square triangles because if you make flying geese, you end up with a partial seam there. And this is the layout. Half square triangles are interesting and sometimes difficult to sew together. Like on this one, we're going to end up with the two seams on top of each other. So I'm going to pin these together and show you how I sew them, and then how I'm going to end up pressing them to make sure we have nice accurate seams at the top. Forgive me while I reset the camera here. Okay. All right, so first thing I'm going to work in rows. And I do like to use pins wherever they went. What I'm really making sure here is that my edges line up down here at the sides. Okay, very happy with that. I'm going to double check this. Pin down here. Okay, so you can see up here, this is what I call a bunny tail. I'm sure they have a bunch of different names. And what I want to do is put this in first. That's going to give me some stability when I go over this double thick seam right here. And I do have my machine set to the needle position, one to the right, to give me a scant 1/4 inch. You can see that the fabric kind of bunches up right there, so I'm just going to use my detail. Go slowly. There we go. Take my pin out before I get to it. When I get to the bottom, I want to make sure, either using my finger or a stiletto, that this fabric goes nice and straight through there so I don't end up with a smaller seam. Okay, got my thread, got my bunny tail. Now we open this up. And we see this is with the seam allowance going to the left, how that lines up. And then I check it going to the right and see which one has a better point, and that's the direction I will press the seam. I'm going to take this out so I can see it a little better. It looks to me the seam is about the same going either direction. So I'm going to go ahead and just press it to the left. Okay, my next row is a half square triangle and a square that doesn't have any seams in it. Again, I'm going to line it up, making sure my edges here have a nice straight edges matching. I'm going to use my bunny tail. And the important part here is I have the flat piece on the bottom. That way it doesn't get caught on this tiny ridge and flip that seam. You can see that sometimes these seams just kind of seem to get stuck. All right. This next one is pretty sweet because the seams are going opposite each other. Again, making sure my edges match up nice and straight. Oops. That's why you don't have your foot on the foot control. Okay. Flip this over. Sometimes, as you can see, it takes me a little fiddly to get this where I'd like it. It's worth the extra time to make sure these are square. That way you're not trying to correct something down the line. Okay, there we go. I'm happy with that. This is called chain piecing when you have sets going through one after another. Cut these off. Cut them apart. And so far I have not pressed these, and I will get to that once I have the other piece sewed on the row. So this one, it won't matter which way I press it because we'll press it to the right because this doesn't have a seam on it. It'll lay flatter. This one will press to the left because it doesn't have a seam in it. So here's the third piece of this row. Again, I'm going to line up this edge, turn it around, okay. This one I turned around so I don't, well, I do have a seam down here, but it's otherwise my other piece would be pointing to the inside of the machine, and we don't want that. Because there's a seam here, I'm going to use my stiletto. Here's my middle row. And again, I'm just going to do it this way and then spin it when I get it. I want the top edges and the bottom edges to be nice and even. Alrighty. My third row. Spin that around. Make sure my edges are nice and even. One thing you could also do to make sure this is straight is flip this one. I'll show you this. You can see how different those two seams are. And if I flip this one this way, I can make sure my centers are nice and straight as well. And I'll just put a pin in here and then let this go back to where it should be. This is another thick corner, so I'll be pulling on the back, excuse me, the back to give it a little extra gumption, I guess. Pull my pin out well before the end. All right. Okay, so should be able to adjust this somewhat. Sorry about all the moving around. Oops, there we go, that should help a little bit. So this is my bottom row, and I'm going to flip it back to where it should be. It should have the green triangle open ends up. This is my middle row, and this one should be going this way. And here's my upper row, and that should be going that way. And that's because I'm going to drag this out. I want these two half square triangles. I want those 4 sets to be looking more like flying geese when we're done. So I'm just going to press these, and I'll press these to the right, these to the left, and these to the right. Thanks for watching. Be sure and like and subscribe. Bye now.